All right. Good morning and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I'm Rob Vining, lead faculty for the Telehealth Division for the Institute of Clinical Excellence and heading up the telehealth teaching. Um, excuse me, this morning I've got this stuff and leading the charge for the telehealth building your digital practice course. So that's coming up on March 23rd, and today on Tuesday we are going to talk about telehealth, learning by example or learning by doing. Now the funny part is, just last night I watched a movie that was pretty parallel with what we're talking about. It's called Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow, and it's a great movie. But it actually talks about the first part, which is learning by example or learning by doing. That movie was all about learning by doing, right? And the guy had to just repeat his day over and over, similar to Groundhog Day. And I think it's really there's two ways that we usually learn, and it's very obvious in our clinical education whenever we go out in our clinicals. At first, it's a lot of learning by example. We're watching, we're trying to get that base layer of knowledge in our brain about, okay, how do we do this? Let me see some examples here, and follow those examples. At least have that base layer of knowledge so that when I'm doing and actually learning by doing, then I'm going to be able to have that base layer to pull from. So the thing that we're going to talk about is in telehealth, there's this same sort of thing going on. We can learn by example or we can learn by doing. And in the telehealth course that I teach, it's a lot of prepping, like for the first 3-4 weeks. And then it's doing on the fourth week. And then it's prepping a little more. And then again, doing on week 8. And so the thing that helps most people, and the thing that we also created at telehealthpt.com, is a huge library of examples. So there we've got like 320 something examples of actual physical therapy visits happening with a real patient and a real physical therapist with different diagnoses. And the whole reason that I wanted to do that is, while I've been educating the market and kind of teaching the physical therapy profession as much as I can about telehealth, that was all just leading by example and learning by example and showing people things, right? Now, the thing that was tough about that, I kept hitting questions of what about pelvic health? What about pediatrics? What about all these different things that I personally don't have the experience, and I didn't have the knowledge to teach them because I'd never done it. I didn't have that Rolodex of actual participation in those telehealth visits to help educate that niche of clinician that was looking for telehealth examples. So when we created this big library, I wanted to create those examples by examples of learning by watching, right? That way, these educational moments can happen when people are watching. They can have those light bulbs go off and go, oh, okay, I get it. I would see now how I could do that. Now it makes sense. And then they would participate. So we've got these two different levels of learning. And when you're looking at both, they don't have to be one or the other, right? And like I was saying, in clinical education, you're always having both of those things happening, hopefully simultaneously. I've heard of the clinical settings where you go to them and you're just throwing a caseload and that's it. They're all yours and bye. But the proper way of a great clinical experience is having that nice mixture, and almost like a seesaw of learning by watching first. And then as you get more and more experience and you get more comfortable, and your clinical instructor can see that you're becoming more comfortable, then you get to learn by doing. So when it comes to telehealth, I think it's very important to, number one, not be afraid of the doing portion, and to recognize that a lot of times you're going to conquer that fear, and you're going to conquer all the doubts in your head about, well, how do I do it without using my hands? And what is that going to look like? And is the patient even going to see it as valuable? You can completely do that by starting with the watching and intake of information by watching examples, right? And that's the whole reason why on telehealthpt.com, that's what we did, is we wanted to give really good examples. I think that's going to be a huge part of the educational industry in the future, and especially in doctor of physical therapy programs coming up. And I know we touched on this the last couple of episodes that I did for the PT on Ice Daily Show, but I think it's something that we kind of need to step on the gas with. We need to provide a lot of examples to show clinicians that are just being developed and just being introduced to a lot of physical therapy concepts that, okay, even though we're talking about the hands-on component, here's how you would do this with these different niches of patients without using your hands, and it will help you develop the subjective strategies needed to even get better with your hands, because you've got to draw out those key pieces of information if you want to take the subjective that the patient is giving you and then come up with a correct strategy and plan of care, including your hands or not including your hands in the case of telehealth, to get that patient better and achieve all of their goals. So that's one thing that I want to express to a lot of people, is that even if you're scratching your head going, how does telehealth work? I don't understand it. I'm kind of not necessarily scared of it, but I'm hesitant. When you feel that hesitancy kind of creep up on the back of your neck, remember that there is always the similar method of learning, and it's apprenticeship, right? We've all heard of that. We've all heard of people that are watching experts and kind of tagging along and doing just hours and weeks and months and years sometimes of actually watching an expert and learning all of their tips and all of their small shortcuts and all of the things that they do to become the expert that they are. And once you can watch those, I mean, it's similar to in the clinic, where you're going to pick up tons of those analogies and those parallels that expert clinicians will draw and kind of show patients and educate them in a way where the patient goes, oh, they have that aha moment. And it's really great with the opportunity of watching different telehealth examples, because you can see the patients react in real time to the therapist teaching them. And there's nothing like actually seeing a patient understand what is going on with them, and then letting them also, be educated and understand how they can play a massive part in their own healing and their own recovery. And when you see those certain examples, it really puts it just builds that Rolodex of information of how you can actually do a better job at educating patients, especially when you're fresh, especially when you don't have that massive Rolodex to draw from. The simplest way is just to learn by example and watch a bunch of different examples. So then you can pull from that. So you can build your virtual Rolodex, right? And then once you have that virtual Rolodex, you have something to pull from when it comes time, when you're actually learning by doing and you're participating in telehealth visits with patients. And then you'll have the confidence to actually pull from the Rolodex that you've learned from without even touching a patient and without even seeing a telehealth patient. And then you get into that actual real life scenario of being able to interact with a patient and being able to extrapolate those lessons learned from the examples that you watched. And you just extrapolate and apply those to patients that you are seeing. And that will help reinforce the learning by doing portion. So I hope this was helpful. I'm really excited about the way that our industry is going. I think that tech, not even telehealth, let's not even discuss telehealth itself, but I think technology is going to bring us a bunch of different learning opportunities, not only in live video interactions, but I think something as simple as virtual reality is going to be a huge game changer when it comes to learning and being even more immersive. Because if you imagine, putting on these headsets, and yes, they're bulky and they've got some difficulties, but once you actually do that, and you can see the potential in something like virtual reality, and being a student that wants to learn by examples and being able to put on a headset and you can walk around the patient and professional interaction, and you can see them actually, doing muscle tests, all these other things that are happening, and you can actually be there with a headset on. That is some sort of immersion that will let the learning by example and learning by watching portion of your education just skyrocket. because your brain will actually take in that information even better, because there's more and more senses, and there's a 3D environment that you're looking at, and you can interact with that environment by moving around it. And that will actually increase your learning even more so, because your brain will think it's even a more real scenario. And when you learn lessons and can build a Rolodex with something like that, that's going to increase your learning and make you kind of soak up even more knowledge, so that when you actually go out and you're in the learning by doing portion, your Rolodex is going to be that much more solid. So lots of exciting things coming up with technology on the front end. I feel like we're just scratching the surface with telehealth, and telehealth building your digital practice. It's fun to see those clinicians get in there and actually do these examples to where they're interacting and they weren't really sure. And I'm talking seasoned veterans and brand new clinicians. And it is so fun to see them come out of that and write up their summary and say, I did this and I didn't expect it to be as valuable and as easy as it was. Here were the little hurdles, but I know I can get over those. And here's where I am now. I feel that much more confident. And that's just after one, right? So it's going to make us all better clinicians. And I think the more that we use technology and we look at the parallel between the current learning environment with clinical instruction, and we replicate that with having recorded video examples and then the doing portion and combining those two together, I think it's a beautiful moment where we can all help each other by having some sort of built up library like we do on telehealthpt.com. And then you apply that to the knowledge base that you have and that you draw from when you're interacting and actually doing telehealth visits. So it'll be fun. All right, everybody, thanks for listening this morning. Make sure to check out everything on PT on Ice every single day. And then look on the Institute of Clinical Excellence website and follow us on social media. It's been great being a part of this. It's just fun to watch it grow. All right, take care, everybody. See you soon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.